Welcome, 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 everyone. My name is Timothy Cross. I am one of the hosts today, and I'm joined today by none other than the infamous man himself, David Choate.
I don't think you can introduce someone as infamous. I don't know that that's the best way to bring me in.
It's what's happening. It's what's
All
happening.
Right. Yes, I am the infamous David Choate, director of Share Faith Kids, joining, of course, Tim Cross, the director of Share Faith Media. And Tim, we got a hot topic today.
We do, a hot topic, but before we jump into that, we want to do, again, just a few reminders really quickly. All throughout today's webinar, please use the Q&A feature Zoom provides. If you have any questions, we have a team of panelists here ready to take those questions and get you the answers that you need. In addition, we also have some resources we want you to be aware of. The first one being online.ministrybrands.com is a great place. We've done so many at this point, David. I don't know. We've done a lot of webinars.
Well, that's the thing. We keep thinking after the last webinar, they won't invite us back.
They just keep asking us back.
Despite our best efforts, here we are.
We don't even, we're doing our best. We're doing our best. It's what it is what it is. It is what it is. So with that being said, online.ministrybrands.com. We have all of the previous webinars, but in addition to that, we also have a lot of free resources and free content that you can get. Even the latest one being a free VBS day lesson from Share Faith
so
Kids.
We've done like online VBS. There's all sorts of like free offers for technology, resource guides, almost any and everything you can think of on the topic of ministry online. So please, if you're looking for some great resources for your church, check out online.ministrybrands.com.
Yep, and all of this is brought to you by Ministry Brands. A lot of people aren't quite sure who Ministry Brands is. Well, we are a brand, a family of brands, of church tech brands coming together, integrating together. We're super passionate about helping the church succeed and be successful. Our mission is to essentially partner with you so that you can do the work of the ministry and to do it with excellence. That's what we're excited about. That's what we love. That's why we're doing hot topic webinars like reopening the church. How do we even begin to do that? And we have it's an action-packed webinar, David.
And if like family of brands doesn't quite compute and you're like, what exactly does that mean? It means it's people like Tim and I who are leaders in the church, leaders in different areas of technology that do love the church's mission and are privileged to get together in moments like this to share what we know or to bring in guests who are far more knowledgeable than us and just glean what they have and share it with you.
Yeah, and we got people from all over joining us today. Canada, New York, Wisconsin, San Diego. Fan-freaking-tastic. Well,
I don't know if you can say that, but you just did. All right. So
I can't say that?
Well, it's borderline. Okay, it's done.
Sorry.
Let's leave it in the past.
They're not going to invite me back on.
Well, that's what you think, but it keeps happening.
We're super excited.
As we mentioned, this, I think what's so exciting about this conversation to me is that in my church, this has been such a difficult conversation to have. It seems as polarizing as anything that I've seen in the church recently. On the one hand, there will be a group of people that go, we should have never shut down. This has been a big waste of time. We've destroyed our economy for no reason. And then on the other side, you'll have a group of people that go, that kind of thinking is putting lives in jeopardy. How could you approach it that way? And then you have the church, the leadership in the middle, trying to have a conversation in that context about reopening, when, how, things to keep in mind. And so
and to do it well, do it well. You're 100%. We have it's just a polar opposites in so many ways. And as the church, it's our job. It's our job to lead well and lead by example, to show that there is a way forward, and being responsible doing it. That is the key part. We have to show that the church is responsible throughout this whole process and doing what's best for the people, because I'm very confident to say that's what Jesus would want us to do.
Yeah, and I do want to be clear up front. This webinar isn't going to be us giving you a step-by-step plan on how to reopen your church, because there's so many different things that could factor into that with different state guidelines, the specifics of the congregation you lead or are a part of. This is more going to be conversations with different leaders on the discussions they're having, trends that we're seeing within the church community as a whole. And the hope would be that as we present these to you and have this conversation, you and your team would be able to go, well, that's one that we can apply to our ministry, or that's a conversation that we need to have and figure out. And so I'm looking forward to this.
100%. So let's bring our first guest in, David, and get the ball rolling, as it were. Get the ball rolling. Get the professionals in, and we'll just take the back seat because we're not
amateur hour is over, Tim. That's what we're saying. We're bringing in the big guns, and we'll start with Pastor John Boyd. Let's welcome him on.
Let's bring him on from New Life Church, Arkansas. We're super excited to have this conversation today with Pastor John.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Pastor John?
Good.
Is your video on there, Pastor John?
The video host has stopped.
Someone's pulling a flex move on you, Pastor John. They're trying to say, "Hey, you think you're awesome, but we're not turning your video on."
Oh, look there! The flex move has ended. That's short-lived. Well, Pastor John, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, the church where you pastor, and kind of the area of ministry you oversee?
Like I said, my name is John Boyd. I'm one of the pastors here. I oversee operations here at our Conway campus here in Arkansas. Our church is New Life Church, and our head pastor here is Pastor Rick Bazette.
Fantastic. What are some of the things that, as you talk with your congregation, some of the opinions and attitudes that you're hearing about reopening right now?
Man, right now, everyone is on two sides of the fence. I never realized that a psychological effect that the coronavirus was going to have on individuals, nonetheless a congregation, and it's going to take a while to probably disperse or get rid of that. Everyone is thinking, hey, we shouldn't have left, and people are thinking that we should leave and don't come back for a while, and people are thinking that we should, like I said, never left. Why the doors open? So
yeah.
Are you finding that there's I don't know, maybe just animosity or bitterness that's kind of like contention in the congregation right now, or has it not gotten to that point?
No bitterness, no animosity. I think everyone is just anxious. Anxious to get back to church, and then the ones that are not anxious are just nervous right now, and they're just wanting to see what the climate is, not only here in our church and in our city, but also in our state and in the nation. So
for sure,
the things that are going on right now with everyone, they just want to be cautious and careful, but still yet get on with their lives. And most importantly, they want to be in the house. They want to be in the worship. They want to be here at the building.
So you're in the planning stages right now. You're looking at what is it going to take and to do it well to reopen the church. Is that right?
Yes, sir. What we're doing right now, Governor Asa has given us out some guidelines and directives of some things that he would like to see, and our governing body has said that we're just going to follow those guidelines. We trust our leadership, and as far as our governors, our mayors, our president, and everything, and we're going to try to adhere and follow those to the letter as best as we possibly can. Just thinking of everyone's well-being and health and safety, other than our personal feelings first, and in prayer, before we make a decision, we're just in prayer. Like, God, just be with us in this time, direct and guide us in that way and will that you would like us to operate, open or unopened.
So that would be a good place to start then. If anyone's having these conversations within the church leadership, looking to the local and the state guidelines is probably going to be a good place for everyone to start, and following them to the letter, because they are, professionals at making sure that we can do this reopening safely. I love that you mentioned that. It's super important that we do that as a church body, as a big church, big C.
Yes, very important that we do that. And there's different views on that, on the left and on the right, but it's just, we just stay in prayer. God direct us, and we're just making sure that we're taking care of our people, and that's part of being a good shepherd. Sometimes we have to consider their safety when they don't feel like they're in danger. So we're just trying to love on our people and be safe at the same time.
One of the things that is also been a bit of a dividing point is maybe adults are on the same page about returning, but then when it comes to parents and kids ministry, that's another one where it's like, ooh, maybe we could get the adults, but I'm not sure about having kids all together in a classroom. Are you looking at those as separate things, like the adult service and the kids service returning, or how are you approaching the topic of kids ministry?
Right now, we have two different ideas on the table that we're going to discuss. But as of right now, if we were to open our doors today or this weekend, this Sunday, we would not have a children's ministry. We would have a family ministry with the children with their parents inside the auditorium.
Yes.
Children are one of the hardest ones to keep 6 feet apart, and especially our smaller ministries, they like to put things in and out their mouth and share things. So, we're just thinking that that's not going to be a good idea, so, but like I said, there's just things that we're discussing. What would they look like? Having a specific family service, and then what would it look like to have them inside of a service or just a kids ministry? And right now we're doing VBS. Some of it's going to be online. So.
Absolutely. Now, I am seeing people mention in the comment section, wondering, like, has your church reopened? And so you guys haven't reopened yet. You're in the process of looking at that. And so maybe talk through what you're looking for in terms of benchmarks or mileposts in terms of reopening, or what your thought process is in tackling this issue.
No, we have not reopened. We're just, looking at the layout of the land, the climate, what's going on. Our pastor created a COVID task force. So there's like 15 to 20 of us that's on this task force, and everyone has a specific job, from listening to the governor's announcement every day at 1:30. What is he saying? What phases are we on? What do these phases look like? With these phases, what are the things that we can and what are the things that we can't do? So all of that stuff has been compiled and just put in a room where we're talking it out. What does this look like? How can we do it? What's not safe? What's safe? Is this against, the guidelines that they asked us to adhere to, not directives, but guidelines, and how do we feel about it? And so we're just, looking and just following our leadership. We don't know when we're going to phase 2. They pushed it back this week. The governor said there were a couple of spikes here in our state, and he was just wanting to take a pause. But then there are other churches that are opening.
Yeah.
And right now we're just still trying to figure out, and in prayer, what that looks like.
Yeah, and I really want to point out, I'm seeing some great conversations in the chat as you were sharing, Pastor John. It's going to look different for each church, each state, each area throughout the country, throughout the world. It's really important, and we've emphasized this a few times, but look to your local and state guidelines to see what's going on. But even with that qualifier, you still need to make the best choice that's going to be the safest and most responsible for you as a church. I saw one of the comments saying that the majority of their congregation was 65 plus. And we know from some of the things that we've read that is a danger. Like that is like a, high risk category. So, there's not a one size fit all solution. Even I just read something the other day that there's even from, top down, they're like saying, hey, here's what we're thinking, but this doesn't fit every situation. You have to apply wisdom. And I appreciate that you're sharing that, the listening to the daily conference calls from your local and state leadership. And I think that's just such an important.
We're dissecting that, man. We're getting something daily from the CDC. Any report that comes out from that for our state or for our city, we're looking at it. Every press conference, we're looking at it. If there are spikes somewhere, we're discussing it. Like we're leaving nothing to chance. You know, you think about it like, oh, I didn't know that happened there. It takes so much information to make these decisions, and that we just want to make sure that we're doing it right.
You know, one thing that I see here, it was a comment from Nadine, and she goes, where do we separate church and state in this? And obviously that's one of those big kind of topics that can be divisive in this. And it seems like throughout this, the church has been given an incredible opportunity to not say this is what we should do, but instead to go, this is how scripture speaks to this topic. When we look at a topic like civil disobedience or honoring our leadership, how have you guys looked at it maybe informing your congregation just on what scripture says about some of these big topics as they've come up?
Yeah, our pastor has been so spirit-led on there. He's giving that information out. You know, it's coming from one source, not a lot of sources. And he's just telling them, you know, how he feels and, you know, what he sees and, you know, his just wanting to keep us safe in his protection. You know, we've been talking about possibly sending out a survey to see what the congregation feels, how they feel. You know, a couple of questions that, hey, if we were to open back this weekend, would you guys come? You know, so we're in the process of looking at doing that. There's a couple other ministries or churches that already have done that, and it was been interesting to look at their data, you know, on that, seeing what their congregation thinks. You know, some are no, some are yes. And so just, you know, taking in consideration everything, all that information before we make a decision.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, go for it, Tim.
No, you got it, David.
Okay.
Take it away, man.
So we're just getting tons of great questions coming in. One is specifically, you've mentioned that there's a task force that you have that's looking at how to tackle these issues, right? Listening to government guidelines and then discussing, you know, biblical principles and where you feel the Spirit's leading. What is the makeup of your task force? How did you go about assembling in that and making sure that there was a diversity of opinion and thought in there?
Well, Pastor Rick got everyone from pretty much every main type of ministry that we have in our church, and any type of person that would be overseeing any type of operational measure, you know, from prayer leaders, from operation leaders, from children's ministry, from smaller campuses. We have several campuses here, 18. So from the larger campuses, from the smaller campuses. So he has a representation of every diverse group that's inside of our church and that represented in there. You know, how does this affect our children's ministry? How does this affect, you know, your opening of your church? You know, we were talking about restrooms earlier. You know, how will this affect communion? How will this affect baptism? So everyone that has anything to do with the functioning of the body of this church is inside that task force.
I love it. So, okay, you're going to bring your task force together. You'll be listening to government guidelines, and at a certain point, you'll be ready to move forward with reopening. I would assume there'd be a percentage of your body that goes, we're not ready, right? Like it's a great plan, but we're not ready to come back. How would you speak to those concerns?
Man, we have started, we always had an online service, but since this has started, we've tapped into what we felt an even larger audience of people in our congregation that have not been able to attend church inside the building. We're going to put as much or as more effort in continuing to grow that online services so they have that same experience as if they're here, that they have that in that online service. We have people that are monitoring that service, that are praying for individuals and asking and answering questions for those individuals. So anything that you would get inside the building that they're getting online.
Yeah. Man, Pastor John, there's so much. I wish we could have just a longer conversation, but we got some other guests that we want to bring on to talk some about the tech solutions that will help with a reopening. But again, I want to say thank you for joining us today, because not only did you talk about hey, we can be responsible listening to our state and local governments, but you also brought the spiritual side. You mentioned that your pastor is continually praying and seeking God on the best course of action for your church body, for that church body, that unique body of the church. And I think that's an important part that we can all keep in mind as well, is pray.
Right.
Like, we need to pray. We are the church. We need to go to the source of all things for wisdom. And I think that's a huge part that we as Christians can bring to the table. Not only can we apply wisdom that is being shared to us through our state and local governments, but we can also go to the word and find the truth in there to lead us and guide us and make the best and the best choices for our church that we can do. So
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Pastor John. We are going to transition over, but thank you.
Yes.
It's just a good conversation.
And
I wish we could go further.
I do want to say to everyone watching, if you have questions specifically for Pastor John, and maybe you heard him share something, but you'd like some more information on that, just go ahead and drop those in the comment section, and we will pass those along to him. And I'm sure he'd love to share any additional insight or resources that he has. And now we're going to bring on our next guest. And I'm curious, Tim, would you describe this man as you did me, as infamous? Or do you have
he's awesome. He's awesome.
Oh,
100%.
Come on.
Awesome. Where's infamous and awesome in the pecking order?
Awesome is like leaps and bounds over it. 100%. Mark, thank you so much. Mark is the director of church success for Fellowship One here at Ministry Brands. We're going to hand this presentation or this webinar off to him. You're in capable hands, awesome hands.
A bit of context, though. I think what's going to be interesting for everyone is, whereas with John, we got to hear one pastor's perspective. You're really going to share the trends that you're seeing across a wide variety of churches that you've been working with. Is that correct, Mark?
Yep, that's right. Yeah, thank you, guys. Our church success team here at Fellowship One has a front row seat as we partner with thousands of churches that use our technology. And so we really get to see the diversity in the body of Christ. And it's such a privilege to be on this journey with our churches. Do you remember way back in January and February when things were rolling along just fine and everything was normal? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, mid-March, the world started suddenly shifting and changing very quickly. All of a sudden, we're hearing from health and government officials, and they're providing social distancing guidelines and restrictions on gatherings to slow the spread and flatten the curve, and all these new terms we were learning. It seemed that every update brought just more and more uncertainty. And that's what Pastor John was talking about, that they're sensing that uncertainty and anxiety in their own body at their church. We're seeing that a lot in the church that we're supporting and serving. Questions are just coming up left and right. How does it spread? What are the symptoms? Who's vulnerable? How long does it last? Are there any treatments or remedies? I think I saw a chat comment about, hey, what are you doing about fabric covered seats in your auditorium, in your worship center? So just tons of questions. But what we're hearing churches are doing in the midst of all this uncertainty is we're hearing church leaders are saying they're going to seize this as an opportunity to what the church has always done over the centuries: share the hope and love of Jesus in an uncertain and troubled world. I'm reminded of Jesus' words to his disciples just before he was arrested and crucified, as recorded in John chapter 16 at verse 32. He was telling his disciples, hey guys, a time is coming, and in fact has come, when you will be scattered, each to your own home. Each to your own home. That sounds really familiar, doesn't it? We're all probably viewing from our own homes right now. And he went on to say in verse 33, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. Peace. That word just, it's a salve to my soul. It's just peace. Is that world, he goes on to say, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. So this is not taking God by surprise. It's taking us by surprise, but not him. And what we find is that churches have overcome so many troubled times ever since Jesus gave us this promise. Over and over again, the church innovates new ways to spread the good news of Jesus to people through every storm of uncertainty, including this COVID-19 situation. We're seeing church leaders leading the narrative with messages of hope, avoiding divisive opinions. We all have our opinion, but is that really promoting the cause of Christ? And they're saying, no, we're going to promote peace and cooperation and grace. And we're going to use this opportunity to speak life. It's a powerful opportunity. Another trend we're seeing beyond leading the narrative is a phased approach to reopening their physical gatherings. I've heard it said that 2/3 of the states are in some early stage of reopening and relaxing restrictions. Some are in the early stages. So you can imagine we're seeing a broad diversity of reopening methods as churches are preparing for or already in the midst of opening their services. In areas that are already allowing up to 25% of capacity, some churches have reopened, and in fact, they're going into week number 3. They're staying in compliance with their local capacity limits. So for instance, if you have a 500-seat worship center, then they're limited to having 125 attendees per service. Some of these churches have started with normal service times and then monitoring how many people actually pre-register for the service, and then monitoring how many actually showed up and attended. And then based on that, regrouping and saying, okay, based on the actuals, let's go ahead and adjust for the next weekend and either add more services because there's a lot of pent-up demand, or they're reducing the number of services because people are still hesitant. So they're making those adjustments dynamically. Still, other churches are waiting to open, even though their state has said, yeah, you can go ahead and go 25% or whatever it is. They're waiting until the local restrictions expand even further to allow larger capacity limits in future phases. So this is unique for each church based on local and state requirements to ensure compliance with social distancing, sanitization, and touchless guidelines. Many churches are emerging with a higher value on live streaming their church services and making sermons available online, even as they reopen. You heard Pastor John talk about they're seeing the value of their online presence. They realize some people have underlying health conditions within their family, or other people just may not feel comfortable gathering just yet. So this is another opportunity to continue to declare the good news of Jesus outside the 4 walls of the church building. You know, we're seeing churches do an excellent job of communicating through multiple channels. They're updating their website. They're using their church management platform to send targeted email messages to the various groups of people, their leaders and their attendees and their members within their church. They're using online giving. They're sending mass text messages and other methods. And this will continue to be a trend beyond the circumstances that we're currently facing. People will get familiar with watching services online, donating digitally, and texting gifts. And they'll continue going online during vacations and anytime they can't attend or have to miss a service. Since online ministry is a growing trend and accelerating during this time, we want you to know exactly what we offer as we go through these steps for reopening church. You see, our ministry is to support your ministry. When you see these icons, it means we have this feature or resource available for you. We'll add a lot of these resources in the chat, but if you need more information, just let us know in the chat and we'll get that to you. Now let's look at our reopening plan. Let's kind of go to the next level of detail. We're going to walk through what it looks like to reopen and take a closer look at these 7 considerations. And as Pastor John said, these are thought starters, these are conversation starters for you and your leadership team at your church. Things like, hey, let's address the cleaning procedures and new volunteer teams. Oh, let's talk about service times and what our capacities would be. Let's look at seating arrangements. How are we going to approach that? What about continuing to live stream our services online? Once we're done covering this material, we'll show you exactly how to use the technology during your service to make it a touchless experience. But before we jump in, here are the considerations to help you plan for a safer reopening. Churches are conducting training sessions in advance of reopening to train their serving teams on these new social distancing and touchless methods. These are new behaviors. And this will help build confidence so your volunteers know to wear face masks, to maintain proper distance, to avoid contact by waving and not shaking hands, to know which doors have been designated as enter only and the other doors that are exit only, all the while reminding them to smile under that mask and help each person feel welcome at your church. Some churches have even created disinfecting teams to sanitize in between the services. Other churches have redefined existing team roles, such as ushers and safety security teams, to ensure touch points are sanitized in between the services, like door handles, the sanctuary chairs or pews, and bathrooms. These open up new serving opportunities for people to take their next step into volunteering. In fact, I saw on Facebook the other day a volunteer who was sharing the joy of being part of their church's reopening of services. And another person replied saying, "Hey, I'd love to help. How do I get started serving?" And that volunteer replied with the link to the church's serving interest form. And boom, right there, using technology to make it easier for this person to engage and go deeper in their own journey of faith. So if you're not sure exactly where to start with training and sanitizing, we're sharing in our chat the CDC guidelines for cleaning and disinfecting what they call community facilities, and that would be applicable to churches. Another thing to pay attention to is the weather. If the weather permits, you can leave entrances open, so there's no need to touch door handles. It will also be much easier for people to social distance outside before and after service. Many churches are saying, we have to remember at the dismissal to encourage people to actually go back outside and not hang around inside. They're just so happy to see each other again. Churches are being intentional to provide an excellent experience for both their members, the regular attenders, as well as new people to follow their safety guidelines. They're setting up signs around the church so people clearly see reminders of their social distancing and touchless guidelines, like waving rather than shaking hands and staying 6 feet apart. Once you get a system in place for training staff and volunteers, and you have your plan for sanitizing your worship space, you can begin encouraging people to sign up before attending a church service. So give people the option to choose service times and reserve their seat by registering online. If your church provides multiple service times, such as Sunday 9 a.m. and then a second service at 11 a.m., list each and place a button to register next to each service time. This RSVP registration step is the secret sauce to ensuring the church stays within their limited seating capacity for each service time. You can do the same if you're offering worship services in multiple rooms throughout your facility. In just a moment, we're going to show you exactly how to create a form that allows people to sign up for specific services with preset limits on the number of people per service. You can add this form to your church's website or put it in your church's mobile app so people can easily sign up. And you can use the form confirmation feature to let those who register know exactly what to expect when they attend. Once everyone has signed up, it's then time for them to show up. And here's what to look at regarding that. Share with them how early people should arrive before the service time. This will help prevent everyone from showing up at one time. Now, I usher in my church, and most of the time they all show up at one time. So include a reminder that due to limited capacity, late arrivals after the service starts may not be seated. Many churches are adopting check-in for families and individuals, like they used to do just for children, but now they're actually pulling it front of house to help in case there's ever a need for contact tracing. There are a few touchless ways to do this. We've seen some churches that are positioning volunteers just inside the entrances to manually check people in from a safe distance as they arrive. Or you can ask attendees to simply use their phone to show their confirmation email when they walk up and show that they had pre-registered. Attendees can also use our technology to scan a QR code from your church mobile app. And we're going to show you how to set that up shortly using our free mobile app. Give people an idea of what the seating arrangements will be when they arrive. Will you have ushers guiding families to sit in specific areas? Should they expect when they register to receive a seating chart via email if you plan to assign seating in advance of the service? Will there be visual marks on the ground for people to stand on as they prepare to enter? We're seeing churches also indicate which doors are entrance only, which are exit only, to support social distancing. Whatever your seating plan is, lay it out for your people. Let people know what is required of them. It helps to remove some of the anxiety and the uncertainty. Ahead of time, share guidelines like staying 6 feet apart from those that aren't part of your family, and to replace physical greetings like hugs and handshakes with hand waving. If you're not going to pass around the offering plate, encourage them to bring their phone for a touchless offering so they can text a gift or use your mobile phone app. We were talking with Pastor John that we're seeing some churches are saying, hey, we're not going to pass the offering basket, but we'll have a box in the back if you just aren't into technology. So during the appropriate time in your worship service, make sure to display, if you have the screens to display it on, the text giving number, and leave that up for longer than you'd think is necessary so your people can continue to be generous. If you're temporarily removing Bibles and hymnals or note cards from the seats, encourage people to bring their own or to use a mobile phone app. In these early stages of reopening, many churches are notifying parents that the children's ministry is not available just yet. Parents are encouraged to bring their children with them to Big Church. And these churches are providing online children's Bible lessons and suggesting parents provide a tablet or a smartphone with earbuds for their children to enjoy during Big Church. Kind of like when I was a child and my mom would hand me the coloring sheet and say, here you go, occupy yourself while you're sitting in church with us. So it's just great to have this technology for kids now. As you plan, don't forget, not everyone will be ready to return to church just yet. For those that aren't ready to physically come back to church, you'll want to provide the option to join the church service online via live stream or a recorded message, and include your online giving option so they know how to fully engage from home. If you're not already doing this, we provide a lot of great technology that can help, like online giving, live streaming of services, and a mobile church app. Plus, we have a few more free resources to help you. We just covered a lot of information, and you'll want to relay this to your congregation and visitors. So to help you, we're providing a free email template in the chat. We'll also send it to you if you're registered for this session, and you'll find this email template on our ministry online site at online.ministrybrands.com. Remember, there's no one-size-fits-all approach to reopening, so use this template as inspiration to craft your own email and repurpose the content to update your website. It's totally yours to use. And be sure to share your plans on social media. Okay, are you ready? Let's dive into the touchless tech that can help you have a safer reopening. And as we prepare to do that, if you have one of the plans for reopening, if you have one of the plans for phase reopening based on your local guidelines, you have your communication already. So now that you have your communication ready, now it's time to take a look at the technology. And we have those listed on screen here for you. On screen are our church management platforms and giving brands. If you see yours, that means you can do everything we're about to show you at no additional cost. That's my favorite price, 0. Every brand you see already provides you with forms and the full-featured church mobile app we call Ministry One. Using these features, we'll demonstrate exactly how to create a sign-up form that keeps the number of attendees per service within your capacity limits, as well as how to check in using the mobile app. Oh, and don't forget, people can also give using Ministry One. If you don't have access to any of these brands that were on screen, or you want to add an app or online giving to your current plan, we're here to support your ministry. You can try our church management platform free with a 30-day trial to access the forms capabilities and the full-featured church mobile app that comes included. Or you can get a $0 per month online giving plan that comes with forms and Ministry One. To access any of these offers, simply visit online.ministrybrands.com and scroll to the bottom of the page where you will find all these offers. Once you have selected the one that's right for you, just fill out the contact form and we'll get you started right away. Or simply email us at careteam@ministrybrands.com to learn more. So it's now that time to dig into the technology that can help you have a touchless service. So I'm going to turn it back over to our buddies, Tim and David, the auspicious ones.
Well done, sir. You know, one of the the comment section has just been blown
There's a
up
lot.
with-
There's a lot.
There's a lot in there.
I bet there is.
I think one of the things, like for me, some of the big questions that are jumping out, it seems like a lot of people asking about bathrooms, a lot of people asking about worship and singing, and what do we do with that? I think the one thing we have to remember is that it's hard to give any one size fits all answer. And so you do need to go to your state and local guidelines with that. But one of the things I did like that you brought up is in this environment where stuff's shifting and changing, maintaining an online service is such an important option. And maybe you could speak to that just a bit for us.
Yeah, sure. It's been interesting to see how churches are saying, we're going to use this opportunity to actually improve the quality of our online service experience. And we're going to retain that quality as we emerge from the online only to now giving multiple choices for people, whether they want to participate online or they want to come physically on campus. So as usual, you know, as the Lord leads us through these challenging times, we emerge stronger and with greater capabilities. And the church has always been innovative like that. So it's been really great to see. On the idea of bathrooms, I was asking a church leader, their church is actually in Oklahoma, and based on their state guidelines, they said, well, we are under the understanding that it is a healthcare requirement if we're going to be open for people to attend. We need to provide them restroom facilities, but we're also balancing that with social distancing guidelines. And so we've decided to put a sign in front of every other sink, and their sinks are in a row because they're not 6 feet apart. So it makes them 6 feet apart. So one sink is open, another one has a sign saying this one is closed for social distancing, the next one is open, and so on. And they were saying they were looking at some of the other drinking fountains, for instance. They just, because they're side by side, they went ahead and just closed those down completely. We've seen other churches that are saying we're not going to have children's ministries initially. Other churches that have said we're also not going to have food and beverage service if they have a cafe normally, because again, they don't want people congregating close in during these initial stages.
Yeah, and I think the big idea, and maybe the last question here, and we'll transition over, is the importance of thinking through a phased reopening and not just putting all your eggs in one basket, but thinking that through, like, what does it look like to do this in stages? And maybe you could just give us a last word of insight or advice on that.
Yeah, that's been fascinating. Even the dynamicism with which churches are approaching it in the initial stages, where some of these churches are now 3 weeks in. And so they're saying, well, we were thinking, oh my goodness, to allow for the 500 seating capacity, but we're limited to 25%, we're gonna have to add 4 more services. But they said, we started with the same service times, we're hearing a lot of this, and then we monitored it. And based on people's courage or their uncertainty, whether they actually showed up, and they're either adding an additional service to make room for more, or in the cases where they're like, well, we didn't even have 100 people show up, so I guess we don't have to have as many services, we can pull it back, knowing that the day is coming when we'll continue to expand it back out. Or like Pastor John said, that their governor decided to roll back phase 2 because of some flare-ups in some certain areas. And so the church being adjustable like that is really helpful during these times.
So good.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, that was just a lot of great information and a lot of great conversation starting points. I think that's how we have to approach it, there's this delicate balance between what your state and local government's recommending, the limitations of your building, where your congregation is at. And I think you did a great job of providing a template to have that discussion. So
a template, yeah, absolutely. Template just to start like you just said, David, just start the conversations, because there is not a one size fit all solution for the reopening of the church at this point. So
that's right. Yeah.
And while we're giving out praise here, I do want to thank so much all of the discussion that's going on right now in the chat section. I've noticed you guys helping one another out, sharing what you're doing, sharing the resources that you've been using or going to, and that is everything we could have hoped for in this webinar. We know that we are not the sole sources of information here, and so to see you guys doing that and just being so generous with your knowledge and your resources, kudos to everyone who's attending. It's amazing to be a part of.
Yeah. For sure. Thank you so much, Mark. We're going to bring our next guest on and get even further into the tech with Cale. I'm excited.
And you're the golden one, right, Cale?
Yes, sir.
Prefer to be introduced.
The golden one. Fantastic.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really, really, really excited to share these features with everybody. My head day to day is deep into the tech, and it makes me so excited to get this opportunity to talk
We're
with
excited
everybody.
to have you, man. You take it away. It's all yours.
Thank you, sir. So before I get too deep into the demo, I do want to make sure everyone knows that I'm sharing the most complete flow using multiple Ministry Brands products. So I'm going to get started in the church management platform, putting groups together. And then after that, I'm going to create the form with service times and capacity limits, and then back to the church management software once more to get into workflows. And then I'm going to show you a little bit in the church app as well. So if you utilize Mystery One, you're going to see that you can both add the form to the app so people can sign up right there in the app. They can also check in using a QR code for a completely touchless check-in. They can give through the app, they can do church streaming. It's really, really exciting. So if you only have some of the Ministry Brands products, or if you only have one potentially, you may not be able to do everything that you see. I'm showing you everything today, but you're going to be able to do the big part. You're going to be able to do the sign up. That's part of the form system. You're going to see it all over the place. Might look a little bit different to you, but based on your product combination, you can check out Reopening the Church section on Ministry Online and learn how to make this happen. So now's the time. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and show you just what it looks like to go ahead and build everything out. So I'm starting out in the church management software, and I'm going to go ahead and create my groups. We've decided to go ahead and build it out for 2 weekends, and we're going to do 2 services each. We're going to get started this coming Sunday, May 24th, 9 o'clock worship service. It's going to be where we get started. And what I'm going to do here is I built a group property earlier, if you haven't used it before, for a limited capacity event. I know I'm moving quickly. We're going to have 4 events to build, so I'm going to get a chance to revisit all the different details as we roll through. So there's my first service for my first Sunday. I'm going to go ahead and get started on the second. So I went ahead and put my name in for this event, and then the group property and attendance. So that's these boxes right here. Track individual attendance used for check-in. And you may notice I switched it to not print any labels. I know that we would just want to go totally touchless. We don't want that physical contact. So I'm going to go ahead and turn labels all the way off for these groups. We're going to be able to have folks check in. They're going to be small services. So we're not going to do any labels. We're not doing kids check in at all. So it's going to be just a little bit more hands off. Alrighty. Just about done with my very last group. And I know it's a little interesting to sit and watch people do data entry, but I wanted to show you just how quick it is to spin up all of these groups, even if you're coming from scratch and you don't have it at all. So now that I've got my last one created, I'm going to show you another great feature of the group properties. So when you have them all tagged with that similar property, it's easy to grab them all at once and make sure you've created what you thought you did. Form time. So this is what everyone's going to be able to do. I'm going to go ahead and create from scratch and name that one Church Opening. And you may notice we do have a bunch of templates available. I'm going to get started with the person field set. I know I'm moving quick. We're going to share this afterwards as well. I'm going to go ahead and rename that to attendee. Makes just a little bit more sense. I'm going to add phone number as well. Sometimes it's really great to just have a little extra info. And drop down. So drop down is what we're going to use for our service selection. And I'm going to head to options now and go ahead and add those 4 options. So it's important to be careful. Make sure that you do type these to be the same, or copy and paste if you just want to make sure that it's an absolute match. For us, we're going to say that our capacity is 25 seats per service. So we're going to go ahead and enter all those in just like we did before, with a capacity of 25 for each service. Obviously, this is going to matter very much depending on who you are and what sort of limits, but you may be thinking about this and realize this is going to be useful for other events and not just church reopening. It's that ability to limit things. And that comes from drop-down radio button checkboxes. They're all over the place. So I'm going to go ahead and add my last service. Apologies for the typo there. And alrighty. And you know what? Let's go ahead and make that one required. we want to make sure that people definitely choose a service. I'm going to add an email on there too. So this is for confirmation emails. I'm going to go ahead and put it outside the field set so they only have to ask it once. I'm going to make it required as well. Now that we have the email field, I'm going to go ahead and clear out form description. I don't think I need anything there, but let's build the email. Alrighty, so if you haven't used placeholders before, they are a dynamic reference and you can actually use them in the address bar, so you can send to whatever information they put. Now I'm going to plug in just our sample email here for office at Sample Church, enter a subject that is somewhat clear. Obviously, you're going to cater this to whatever you'd like to use. You're going to write it in your own terminology and your folks are going to recognize that. And we're going to head in next to use the placeholders once more. So you're going to see me click on attendee. What that does is dynamically fill the email with whatever somebody would have sent in. So it's going to come back and tell them all of their answers. And we'll add a friendly little signature. So what we're going to do next is go and make a workflow. I love workflows. And right when you publish it, you may notice that create a workflow with this form. So church reopening, gonna name it clearly, but it doesn't matter what we name it. Gonna go ahead and activate it, map our fields, and then make a couple of updates. I'm not gonna replace form data and group. So we're going to go ahead and map that to service selection. So that means whatever group they select in the form, it's gonna automatically add them to it. So now, where I wanna take you, we were in workflows. I'm going to take you into check-in settings and show you a church reopening check-in station in case you wanted to make it specific. I'm going to go past a lot of these settings. They're not too terribly important. The important one here might be that you might only want to let people check into groups they're a member of and limit it to that limited capacity event property. And right now I'm on the church management software. You may know it as F1 Go. You may know it as Alexio, Church Office Online, Shelby Next Membership. It goes by a number of names. They all function similarly. So I'm gonna go ahead and run check-in. Let's say Donna has walked up. I know Donna, she shows a receipt, and I'm gonna go ahead and check her in. Now we know not only did she intend to come, she did actually show up. So that is the desktop check-in. But I'm going to go ahead and switch us over to the app. This is Ministry One, and show you what it looks like for an attendee who wants to fill it out. What's it look like? So I'm going to go ahead and put in my name, make my service selection. And these do limit to make sure you can't sign up for too many. I'm going to go ahead and put my phone number in so that the church is able to contact me. Add my wife. You may notice we used the person field set earlier, and where that helps is when I want to add another attendee, I just hit a button. I can just keep adding another attendee. Those can be limited. I put my son in, and I'm pretty sure he's coming to the same service I am. He's 3, so he's not quite old enough to drive and end up at a different service yet. I'm going to go ahead and put in my email address so I get that confirmation. And if you're choosing to use that as a receipt, and that's what gets you in, that'll make sure, thanks to that email we set up earlier in the form, that it goes. All right, I've submitted. Now let's check in on the app. So you may see some of these layouts can be a little different. I'm going to scroll down and head to check-in. So for myself, I'm going to go ahead and open it. You may see right at the top of suggested groups, there's my service. I'm going to go ahead and work my way down the line and select all of my family, hit apply, hit next, and now you're going to see a QR code. So this QR code can be scanned by somebody running check-in from their iOS device or using a 2D barcode scanner. It enables somebody from, feet away to go ahead and scan that, process it. Normally it would print out labels, but we chose no labels today. So it's going to check them in. You're going to know that they were there. It'll give you a nice audible beep if you're using the 2D barcode scanner, and it will show you that it checked in if you're using an iOS device. And like I said, I know we moved quick. We're going to put all of these, the video, and we're going to put documentation into the help system in both church management, Ministry One. You may notice there's a question mark at the upper right. Those are context-based, so if you're on a page and you have some questions, hit the question mark. It's going to give you both some general things, some searches, as well as some specifics, some very page relevant options. So I know I moved quick. We're going to make sure we show everybody the links so that you can watch it at maybe a little bit of a
You
more normal pace.
You did good, Cale. You did good. I think that's a good, important note to everyone. I know you went through it fast, but we're going to make this available. There was a lot to understand with that, but the video will be available for you to see and just kind of step-by-step walk through, which will be great.
Yeah, we did have a couple questions. What platform you were using there to build that out, and maybe the different platforms under the Ministry Brands umbrella that people, if they have that, could be building out these forms.
Absolutely. So we've got a couple of products that have the forms management system, all of our online giving. I believe all of them. There may be just one product or two that doesn't fall into that, but the vast majority of our online giving systems all include that forms platform. You're also going to see that in one of our CHMS platforms that does go by many brand names. So you may know it as Alexio Community, Shelby Next Membership, Church Office Online, CHMS, Fellowship One Go.
I threw up a slide. Hopefully this helps. Yeah, look at that. It wasn't in the slide order. I was like, I think we have a slide for this.
Super helpful for sure. So everything you see here has forms. Everything kind of to the left of the line is one of the church management systems that has this forms problem, or this, not forms problem, sorry, forms solution, the opposite end of the same question. So that's all going to be there. If you do use one of our others, a lot of the principles are going to be similar.
And there's one brand that's missing.
Certainly.
Yeah, and that would be ParishSoft and
yes.
Faith Direct are also on there as well. You know, when you've got so many,
there's so
brands,
many.
It's
but we
tough.
we're getting a lot in the chat, so we just wanted to re-emphasize that. Thank you so much. Faith Direct and ParishSoft are included, and you can do that if you have those tech solutions.
Absolutely. And the form system does hit our websites, a couple of them too. Anybody here who's a Clover website user, Clover sites, you should know our form system. You've got it there too. You're not going to be able to necessarily do like the groups and things like that, but you're still in the fold. You're part of the family, and you've got forms for us.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Cale, for joining us and just showing us how to do that. I always love in these webinars when we can talk the big ideas and get examples, but then also like see it in action. So we appreciate your time and you walking us through that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did notice a question that had rolled in about check-in, if you don't mind if I overstep
absolutely.
my bounds just a little
We
bit.
don't mind, Cale.
We're going to let the golden one do his thing. That's what we do.
It's hard to talk about technology quickly. I'm, engrossed in this and love it. But check-in, in particular. So I was showing Ministry One. That is something that is a massive amount of integration between our different platforms. You can do streaming, you can do giving, and it integrates with these church management software. So I was showing check-in in that. I know that if you have one of those CHMS applications, you also have a different mobile app. So there's multiple mobile apps, but that was in Ministry One, which is a really great congregant focusing app that includes sermons. I could go on for way too long, so you need to cut me off on that one. I love the app and can talk about it way too much.
Where can they go to find more information about Ministry One?
You should be able to go to, particularly if you've already got one of these platforms, if you've got giving, you've got Ministry One. It is free, it's available to all. If you want to be able to do check-in and everything else, I would recommend you can actually head up in your church management software. If you've got that in the upper right, you've got a 9-dot application switcher, and you can find out more. There's a link straight from there. But otherwise, I think we've got some pretty good links there on Ministry Online as well.
Perfect.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We do want to respect people's time here and kind of come in at our hour mark. One thread of comments I saw that I do think it's important is as we were showing all this great technology, people were going, well, what about the members of our congregation who aren't technologically savvy, who this might be like, whoa, so you're going to make me go through this process to attend church? And I would say for the vast majority of people, these online forums are such an amazing resource, but not to the thing that we exclude phone calls and reaching out directly to people who maybe it's not their thing. So I would think that the task force that you assemble, it's not just what are the state guidelines saying, it's not just what are the specifics of our building, but who is our congregation and what are the specific needs and requirements that they have, in ensuring that you've diversified your communication and you've tried to handle these topics in as broad a context as possible.
I mean, to that point, David, you can still do everything that Cale shared and all this technology that we brought and talked about, and then you could marry that with a phone call. Allow people to call in, and then you have someone that walks them through the check-in over the, like they do it for them.
Yeah,
so if you do have
yeah.
some technology and there's people in your congregation that aren't comfortable with it, but they want to attend, they want to be there, just give them an option. Have a team of volunteers ready to take those calls and to check them in for them so that when they get there, they're good to go.
All right. Now, as we wrap it up, one of the questions that came along is, will we be able to get all of the information that was in the chat section? Because a lot of great stuff was shared. And the answer is yes, we will get you a link to that. I don't exactly know how it's going to be distributed.
We're going to make it happen.
And I've heard that it may not be the prettiest format, but you will get it. So it will be there for you because there has been some amazing information shared.
Yep. And to that point, we want to remind everyone that Ministry Online has been a series of webinars that we've done designed to help the church kind of with the big challenges that we're facing in this season of the church. So definitely make sure to keep an eye out for future webinars and future topics, and email us at careteam@ministrybrands.com if there is, a hot topic that you would really like us to focus on and have conversation around. That's what we're here for. Our goal and our mission here at Ministry Brands is to partner with you to help you do the work of the ministry. We want to see you succeed, and that's what all of our technology is here and designed to do.
And I guess my final thought on all this is, man, what an honor for me to spend an hour with the illustrious Tim Cross. It's just, made my day. Now,
wow, can I mute him? Oh, check that out. I can. I muted him. All right, let's unmute him. Let's bring him back. All right, David.
Ridiculous. Okay, now, as you've seen, Ministry Brands has so many different tech solutions, from church management, online text giving, mobile apps, background checks. There's Sunday school curriculum, church graphics. There really is so much going on. So if there is a church technology need that you have, guarantee that we have a resource that can help your church in that area. Reach out to us, careteam@ministrybrands.com. Any specifics that you're wanting more information on, and we will be sure and get you what you need.
Yep. And we're going to keep, we're going to close out, but we're going to keep the chat open. We're going to play some music. We're going to throw up the last slide just so you can have, if you have questions, we're going to have the team here of panelists answering those questions, but then you'll also be able to chat amongst yourselves. And thank you everyone for attending. Thank you for being here. We know this is one of those big topics, so hopefully we covered some things that maybe didn't answer all of your questions, but at least can get you started in the right direction.